slide, and the method remains the same as it was in the first paper. Now, there could be different types of uh, regulatory mechanisms in the pathways, within the pathways and between the pathways. For example, feed-forward feedback loops. Feed-forward feedback loops could be positive and negative, and similarly, the crosstalk between the pathways could be positive and negative, and it could be also at different level. For example, receptor is connecting target protein, or receptor is connecting ISM, that means intermediate signaling molecules. Similarly, it could happen from the different pathways. And furthermore, there could be also possibility of having feed-forward feedback loops, positive and negative. Now, the crosstalks are of four types: concomitant signaling, collaborative signaling, direct activation, and amplification. So we are now going for the implementation, to discuss the results of these crosstalks. So this is a figure. A, B, C, D are representing the initial values of all the responses of all the target proteins. E, F, G, H, I, J, they are representing the output responses in the presence of different types of loops and crosstalks. So currently it is loops we are talking. And for example, feedback forward loop positive is giving sustained response in E, left side. Feed forward negative loop could also give partially or fully adapted response, including sustained responses. Feedback positive loops could give partially adapted response for target proteins. Feedback negative loop is giving partially or fully adapted output response. The combination of positive feed forward and feedback loops are giving sustained response, but the combination of feed forward negative and feed forward back negative loop is giving fully adapted output response for the target protein. Again, H, where presence of feed forward negative and feedback positive loop is giving fully adapted output response, as it can be seen in figure H. Now, there are the other combinations which you can clearly see. Finally, we are investigating the effect of presence of concomitant signaling. In concomitant signaling, inhibitory concomitant signaling is giving fully adapted output response, target responses, but in all other uh, crosstalks, it is mostly sustained responses, which we can clearly see here. Now, this is a model where we have included all the possibilities what we have discussed in the previous works. For example, rate of change in concentration, rate of change in kinetic parameter, rate of change, the change in the different kinetic, different concentrations, concentration of different proteins, and in presence of the feed-forward feedback loops, presence of crosstalks in just one model, and the presence of feed-forward feedback loop and crosstalks starts in after 100 generation. Up to 100 generation, we try to give the model, to evolve the model to get the most standard rate of reactions, and then we allowed the crosstalks and loops, which you can see after 100 generations, we are allowing in the crosstalks. And then after 135 generation, we are including the presence of loops, feed-forward feedback loops. And then there are different kinds of inhibitory crosstalks are in the beginning, activatory crosstalks are in the last 50 generations. So what we are concluding from this is basically similar to what we discussed in the previous slide, that the feed-forward feedback loop, the combination of feedback and feed-forward loops, and the negative, like, crosstalks, they are basically somehow responsible for adapted, fully adapted or partially adapted output response or target response. And then right side corner is the fitness parameter for all the generations Now, next is individual investigation of all the responses. For since we have crosstalk between the pathways, so we are investigating both the responses, target responses for both the pathways. And here we can see how the output responses looks like. Finally, the conclusion is crosstalks of signaling pathways plays crucial roles in modulation of cellular responses. And finally, it's now if you want to go further to understand and use it for future perspective, then you could go for some different kind of possible future perspective changes, updation, and increase the model. So finally, and this is one of the reference where you can see the pathway crosstalks. And that's overall thing what you need to understand here. So thank you very much.